Hello, it's been a while. So I wanted to re-upload this video, and it was called What Self-Love slash Self-Hate Really Is. And I want to talk about the spiritual meaning of self-love and the spiritual meaning of self-hate, because most people, I say most people, they reduce what self-love is. They reduce it to the ego state. Basically, how you treat yourself, how you treat your body, how you eat, if you exercise, how you do your hair, if you're clean, or how you allow somebody to treat you, if you know how to set boundaries, do you always care about what other people think, and do you accept yourself, and so it's kind of reduced. It's reduced to how you live as an ego. Okay, how you live as an ego. When I say how you live as an ego, it's how you live as a physical, what you would believe to be a physical person, which is really just an illusion. Okay, I'm gonna get to that. And self-hate, same thing, kind of reduced to someone who doesn't appear to take care of themselves, their physical shell. They don't they don't care of themselves in a manner that they actually love themselves as their ego. They might look kind of toe up or something. They might have a bunch of children by a lot of men that does not have great pedigree. Okay, and it's not going to stick around and take care of the children. Okay, or they might just behave in a manner that's unpleasant to society. I don't know, or just anything, a lot of things, or same thing, being in a relationship, or dealing with people who are constantly overstepping their boundaries, constantly stepping on you, things like that. And so that could be called self-hate, right? Hating your skin complexion, hating your hair. So, once again, it's reduced to the physical. It's reduced to the physical, okay? But I want to get into the more spiritual side of what self-hate, what self-love really is, and why the ego actually loves suffering. So anybody, I don't care what they appear to be, I don't care how fixed up they are, I don't care if they're in a relationship with somebody who takes care of them, I don't care if they have great jobs or whatever, or they have good money and comfortable. As long as they are that comfortable in a physical state that they have no interest in really evolving or graduating, then that is still self-hate, because they are content with being separated from their true self because their physical life is so comfortable that they're complacent. Okay, so I want to get to self-love. Okay, so what self-love is, from what my experience has been, what self-love is, because the truth is up to each individual person. So this is from my experience, what self-love really is. Self-love is getting to a point of spirituality, getting to a level of maturity where you realize you're an ego, and you realize that you're something more than that. You realize that this is not you, that you realize that this is not your true self. Even if you don't even understand all the details right away, it's something that's in you that lets you know this is not who you are. And then you constantly stay on that type of subject of understanding the ego, or whatever, however you want to study it. And then you realize the real you is somewhere else. Now, for me, my understanding was that we are in a simulation. Some people call it holographic world, and some people call it virtual reality. There are some physicists that prefer not to call this a holographic world, because when you call it holographic, you get into 3D. Okay, you get into 3D type of stuff when you talk about holographic, when it's actually we have avatars, and this is a virtual reality that's ran by a computer and ran by virtual codes, and we basically have an avatar, a fake body, not some 3D kind of body. So some physicists don't like saying holographic, because then you get into the 3D stuff. Okay, but anyway, so that's a little bit of the kind of disagreements with that. But either way, it seems like a lot of people are starting to see that this physical world is an illusion. What we think is a physical body is an illusion, but we are, our consciousness is low, in an illusion, what you would call Maya. Okay, believing in a physical existence, believing in a physical body, believing all this stuff, right? That's why these entities or these people that's call themselves running the world, I guess. I don't know what world it is, because I'm learning, I'm growing more and more each day, that when I say running the world, okay, which world are they running? They're only running the world of the people who don't understand their power, right? Because everybody is in their own universe. So the only reason why they can do that is because people they gave their power away, and they become domesticated, and they don't understand that they have the power. And that's the only reason why these entities can run it. Okay, same with me, because I didn't know either. I'm growing and growing every day. So once again, that's not to put anybody down. Okay, but yeah. So self-love is kind of releasing the attachments to this physical world in order to graduate and ascend to your true self, basically. And the attachments could be your mama, the attachments could be your children. And I'm so glad I don't have children. That'd be hard for me. But attachments could be your mother, your father, your brother, your spouse, okay, money. Now, of course, you're going to need money to be comfortable while you're here. Some people have a love of money, and you know, I'm not a Bible thumper, but I do agree with a lot of things. When you understand how to break things down esoterically, I actually agree with a lot of things that's in the Bible when it's broken down esoterically. I agree with a lot of stuff that's said in the Bible. Okay, rather than somebody who don't really know what they're reading and never read the Bible one time in their life, and they bring the scripture to you, but they don't even understand what they're saying, then it makes you not interested because they don't know what they're saying. But you get somebody who has occult knowledge, or you don't even have to have occult knowledge, just you be in the spirit most of the time. Most of the time, I'm in the spirit when I see things differently. And the spirit tell me what certain things really mean. So I don't, that's a lot with me. But even people who have occult knowledge, somebody somewhere got something from spirit. Okay, but yeah. So I want to say this because I said this example on the upload that I said before, but I didn't like the volume, and I hope this turns out okay because it's birds chirping and then it's traffic, so I hope you can hear me. But like, I brought up the example of it's easier for the camel to go through the eye of a needle than for the rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven, right? And what I said was, it's not about the rich man and why it's easier for the camel to go through the eye of a needle. When you know the eye of a needle is like real tiny, right? Real extremely tiny, and you got this big camel that's able to go through the eye of the needle. And then we talk about the rich man in heaven. So I'm going to talk about the camel that's then go through the eye of the needle. Well, it's because that camel understands that the physical body is an illusion, right? So that camel doesn't have a big ego. So that camel, he or she, whatever, doesn't have to shed the layers of the ego in order to get through the eye of the needle, because that camel understands that it's not physical. And that camel understands that the true self is as tiny as the eye of the needle, or a mustard seed. You know how people say have the faith of a mustard seed, or the Bible says have the faith of a mustard seed? That's about how small your spirit man is. That's how small your true self is. And that's how small it is, but it's actually very powerful. Okay, we look at things in terms of size because of ego. Bobby Hemmett told the story one time when I listened to somebody uploaded one of his lectures, and he talked about how he woke up one morning and he was so deep down into his body, it's just nothing but darkness, right? So he was deep down into his so-called physical body. He was so deep down into it that he actually saw the holes where his eyeballs were supposed to be. So the light that was coming into the body was coming from the holes from where his eyeballs were supposed to be. Okay? And that's the only light he saw coming in. Everything else was dark. But him being a spiritual person, he didn't get scared. Good thing it was him. He understood what that meant. That his true self is that small. It's not as big as what you would think is his physical body. His true self is that little tiny person, that little spirit man that's inside. That little mustard seed, the smallest an eye of a needle, right? So that camel understands the reason why it's so big it could get through the eye of the needle is because it doesn't have a huge ego. So it understands that its physical body is an illusion, that the physical world is an illusion. So it knows it's that camel is so spiritual that it understands how to get through there because it's not full of ego. Okay? But that rich man is full of ego. So you can't get into what you would call the kingdom of heaven with a lot of layers and attachment to the physical world. That rich man. Now, I'm not saying having money means that you have an attachment to the physical world, because there are people that are great with money that has actually changed other people's lives. So I'm not saying that having money is what caused that person, that rich man, to get in. But for the most part, a lot of rich people are willing to let everybody else stay at the bottom as long as they stay comfortable, right? As long as they stay rich. So like even during that time, the rich man was satisfied with other people having to because that reminds me of capitalism, right? That rich man was all right with other people suffering for his comforts. Okay? Sometimes when you have a lot of money, you think you're invincible. You think you have a lot of power. That's another thing what comes with having money. Money can change your attitude if you're not spiritual enough to learn how to handle it. Some people don't need a lot of money because they really need a level of spiritual maturity to be able to handle that kind of, because with money comes power. It really does. And then you got to have a level of spiritual maturity. Okay? And a lot of people don't have it, and that's why they end up going to lower realms, because they become attached to the material world, and you can't get into what you would call the kingdom of heaven with being attached to the physical world. And so that rich man has an attachment to the physical world, and his ego is could be a lot larger than the average person because of the power that comes with his riches. Okay, his ego has grown very large. Okay. Now I want to talk about the ego for a second, because everybody has the ego. Anybody who still is what you would call in the physical existence is an ego. Imagine from the time you were born, if you draw like the outline of a person right on the board and say that person is you, just draw an outline of a physical person, a human person. Go from the time you can remember as a little girl or boy until now, and right on the inside of that, the shape of that human, that person, everything that you learn from what your parents taught you from as far as back as you can remember, from the environment you grew up in, from school, everything that you learned, everything that stayed with you, everything that was attached to you, the whole thing makes up your ego. All of that makes up who you are, makes up your characteristic, it makes up your individuality. Okay? That's the ego. So the ego is not necessarily reduced to having pride and being anger and, I let my ego get the best of me. Well, yeah, sometimes you can let your ego get the best of you when you're not balanced, but it's just not reduced to someone with pride, right? It's not reduced to being a male. Some people like to say males have large egos. That is very true, but it's a lot of women. And anybody who is anybody who is kind of consciousness is in this physical reality that's an illusion. They're stuck in their ego, okay? So that's what it is. It's not necessarily whether a man or a woman or just limited to having pride and all that stuff, right? But yeah, so I was just wanting to explain the little difference there between what self-love and self-hate is. So basically self-love is releasing the attachments of the world. Now you don't have to be rich to have a large ego. That was just an example of something that was in the Bible. But I also want to say that people who are very family oriented, like, you know, a lot of us, a lot of people have talked about how the so-called black community is fragmented, right? Okay, that's true, but I want to say this though. A lot of these other groups of people that have tight cultures, very, very close cultures, very close families, very traditional families, they will have a harder time of ascending to their true self. Why? Because of the traditions of their family, it's going to hold them back. So that's still ego. So I don't want to make it just about somebody who's rich. Anything that that keeps you, anything that you hold on to that prevents you from becoming your true self, is self-hate. Okay? So it can be you be married to somebody for 40 years and you are awakened to a point where you know that this ego is a false reality, and the true reality is in your true self, and you're to a point of that you know that your true self, that you have to shed the layers of the ego. But for example, what if you've just been married to somebody for 40 years? What if you're a woman that's married to a man, or vice versa, for 40 years, and they've been a pretty good spouse, and you don't want to let them go because they've been great in your life, right? You become codependent. I guess that would happen when you've been married for 40 years, right? And you had a good relationship. But you become, to a point, you become one. And it's hard to let that spouse go. And you're willing to sacrifice your true self, and you're willing to sacrifice your soul, and to just literally allow your soul to be destroyed and become non-existent because of your marriage, right? Because you had a great marriage, and that you're willing to sacrifice all those things. Well, not things, but you're willing to sacrifice your true self, and you're willing to keep your artificial self because of your family traditions, or maybe you're in a marriage, or maybe in a relationship, something like that, or maybe you just have a good life, a nice comfortable life, and you might think you have friends, right? And so it's a lot of those type of issues that make you feel comfortable enough and complacent with your physical reality that you don't see the need. It's like what they're saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And a lot of people, they feel like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And in most cases, people who are on a journey to their true self is because they've been broken and they've been traumatized. It's like literally broke down, it's like a tower moment, to the point where they finally realize that the physical illusion, this is my case right here. I've had tower moments where I realized this physical illusion is over, and I had to make a decision, either to become a god or just descend, okay? So I had that tower moment where I had to make a decision. So so that's basically self-love and what self-hate is, and how the ego just has this obsession with suffering. But anyway, I'm gonna have to get up and go. Look like it's gonna rain outside, but I have to get up and go, and I will talk to you later.